This is the most valuable company in the history of the world. $5 trillion. That's worth more than the entire economy of Germany. And it got there in barely 3 years by selling the tools that power artificial intelligence. But one man, the investor who predicted the 2008 crash, just bet over $1 billion that this entire boom is about to collapse. And here's the part nobody wants to hear. We have seen this exact movie before, 25 years ago. And last time, it wiped out $5 trillion and took 15 years to recover. So the question worth trillions is simple. Is AI the greatest boom in history? Or the next great crash? Let's break it down.
To understand the danger, you first have to understand the gold rush. When the AI race exploded, every company on Earth wanted in. And to build AI, they all needed one thing: chips. Specialized processors made almost entirely by a single company, Nvidia. In 1 quarter, Nvidia made over $58 billion, not in revenue, in profit, up more than 200% in a single year. There's an old saying, in a gold rush, don't dig for gold, sell the shovels. Nvidia became the shovel seller of the AI age, and the entire world lined up to buy. In 2025 alone, the biggest tech companies spent over $400 billion building AI data centers. For 2026, that number is climbing towards $700 billion. It was the largest building boom in corporate history, and almost nobody stopped to ask the obvious question: what happens if the demand never shows up?
Because underneath the boom, something strange was happening with the money. Look closely, and you find a loop. Nvidia invests billions into AI companies like OpenAI. Those companies then promise hundreds of billions to cloud providers like Oracle. And those providers use the money to buy Nvidia's chips. The same cash circling between a handful of companies, making everyone's numbers look enormous. Analysts estimate more than $800 billion is now tied up in these circular deals. Critics have a blunt name for it. They say it's the same trick that inflated the dot-com bubble: money moving in a circle, creating the illusion of unstoppable demand. And it goes deeper. A major ratings agency found these companies are sitting on more than $600 billion in data center commitments that don't even fully appear on their balance sheets yet. The boom looked invincible, but the cracks were forming, and one man had already done the math.
His name is Michael Burry.
If that sounds familiar, it should. He's the investor who saw the 2008 housing collapse before almost anyone, bet against it, and made a fortune. They made a movie about him, The Big Short. For years, he went quiet. Then he came back, and he put around 80% of his entire fund into betting against AI, against Nvidia, and against the data company Palantir. Over $1 billion wagered on a crash. Then he went further. He publicly accused the biggest AI companies of artificially inflating their profits, claiming they were hiding the enormous cost of all those chips to make their earnings look far bigger than they really were. And he wasn't alone. Billionaire investor Peter Thiel quietly sold every single share of Nvidia his fund owned. Then the first crack appeared. Palantir, one of Burry's main targets, fell more than 30%.
So, is Burry right? Here's where it gets complicated, because the other side has a powerful argument too. Nvidia's boss, Jensen Huang, was asked directly about the bubble fears. His answer? From where he's standing, he sees something completely different. And he has a point the dot-com companies never had. Back in 2000, businesses with no profits and barely any customers were worth billions. Today,
Nvidia is making real money, tens of billions in actual profit from real customers. That's the trillion-dollar question. Is this a bubble of hype with nothing underneath? Or a real revolution that's only just begun? Because the stakes are staggering. A handful of AI companies now make up a massive share of the entire stock market. If they fall, they don't fall alone. They drag down retirement accounts, pension funds, and the savings of ordinary people who never bought a single AI stock. The entire global market is now leaning on one bet, that AI will pay off.
So what does history actually tell us? Go back to the dot-com crash. When it burst, the Nasdaq fell almost 77% and erased over $5 trillion. It took 15 years just to climb back. And the company that looked exactly like Nvidia back then, Cisco, it sold the picks and shovels of the internet, just like Nvidia sells them for AI. At the peak, everyone swore it could only go up. Then it crashed 88%. And here's the chilling part. Cisco is still a giant, profitable company today, but its stock took 25 years to get back to where it was in the year 2000. That's the real lesson. A bubble bursting doesn't mean the technology was fake. The internet was real. AI is probably real too. But being right about the technology and being right about the price are two completely different things.
So where does that leave us? On one side, the man who called 2008, betting over $1 billion that this ends in tears. On the other, the most valuable company in history, making real profits, insisting that this time is different. They can't both be right. Either Michael Burry becomes the man who called the two biggest crashes of the century, or AI delivers the greatest transformation since the internet, and the doubters get left behind. Nobody knows which, but everyone, whether they realize it or not, now has a stake in the answer. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe, because on this channel, we break down the biggest stories in money, power, and wealth before everyone else. The next one might change how you see your own money.